It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 176.
There's basically 360,000 companies are solely reliant on Russian exports. Okay, that is their supply chain model. Okay, and the startling thing is 70% of those were North American companies.
My takeaway from the most recent show in Las Vegas was that there were a lot of people there that, got in a wake-up call and began to see the potential issues, with their supply chains if they were solely, sourcing from a particular area of the globe. So they're looking for alternatives, and obviously the best solution would be to bring those products back to North America and be able to have a supply chain that they can feel there's more control over and more reliable.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. If you buy, sell, manufacture, import, or closely study industrial threaded fasteners and related products, this is the podcast for you, and we're very glad you clicked in. Hi, everyone. Eric Dudas here, and the co-host of Fully Threaded is with us as well. Just returned from another of his missions down under. He's international jet-setting code slinger Brian Musker. Hey, Bri, hope your jet lag isn't too bad this time. How you feeling, buddy?
Yeah, I would have said code lagged or jet lagged or whatever rather than code slinging.
Even though you were a little bit out of pocket for the last 2 weeks, you still got quite a bit done in support of FCH, and thank goodness for that. But you had a lot of interesting experiences while you were down there. But I know what a lot of Fully Threaded listeners want to know, and that is, were you successful in your main mission of schlepping back another load of Vegemite for our guests at the upcoming Detroit show and later in Vegas? We're dying to know.
Yeah, the Vegas one is on. The next week one is not. The main supplier that I got the stuff from is no longer carrying those containers and that package. Anyway, I've found a different place, but it has to be sent in. Okay.
Oh, so we're crashing right into one of the themes of the fastener industry right now, right?
Right. Yeah, things that you would think really is supply problems, apparently.
It's everywhere, folks.
Right.
Well, good thing we've got these really cool new FCH pens that we'll be handing out at the show.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was going to be easy, and then when I really set to, I found it was not quite as easy as I thought it should be.
That's the way of the world these days, and we keep bumping into it as we get ready for the Detroit show. I tell you, things are just stacking up. It's just one thing after another. We're in a little bit of a rush this time around, folks. Spring's flying by so fast, you just turn around and already it's time for the next episode. I was doing double duty while you were out of town, Bri, and even though you were helping out as much as you could, I mean, we were still spread thin. I'm glad we got through it. Now we're heading off to Detroit, so there was a lot to do. And again, it's the next episode already, so I didn't even really think about what the title should be. So I think we'll just call it the next episode. What do you think?
Well, it is. So pretty realistic to me.
That's appropriate, if nothing else.
Right.
I'd like to say hello to all the new listeners of the podcast. I was made aware of that at the recent NCFA Distributor Social. We'll talk about that in a minute, but a lot of new people who have been going through the Fastener Training Institute classes have been going back through the archives of Fully Threaded and saying hello. We appreciate that a lot. So it's good to hear from all of you. And, of course, our longtime listeners from everywhere.
Yeah.
You didn't have to sign any autographs in the Sydney airport, did you?
No, I didn't. Strangely enough. Actually, rather than looking around for people wanting autographs, the biggest problem is finding out where in the hell you go next to get through immigration and customs and shit like that. Everything's different.
Yeah, the joys of international travel, and they've been made so much more complicated now.
Yeah, 6 COVID tests later, 11 airports.
it was a whirlwind adventure. We're glad you're back, Bri. And again, we're glad to have all of you listeners with us as well. We've got a full-fledged double feature episode today. And even though it'll be a little light on Brian and Eric commentary due to overall congestion in our schedules, these are very impactful segments, and I know you'll all enjoy them. We'll kick off as Chris Donnell of Scanwell Logistics joins us for the opening segment. He just published his monthly newsletter, and it's another blockbuster. He started out by saying, in a way, he feels like he's in that movie Groundhog Day because the themes just keep repeating. Having said that, there are definitely some new developments that you'll all want to be aware of if you have anything to do with imported product, which, let's face it, that's pretty much everyone in this audience.
Yep.
Chris Donnell, don't miss this one. The second feature today is a conversation with Preston Boyd of the IFI. Now, you may recall that last episode, I said next episode we'll have Preston Boyd on, and here we are, next episode. So I guess that worked out well again, Bri.
Yeah, right.
Preston has many insights to share about the evolution of the distribution model and where that puts us today, specifically in terms of how distributors and domestic manufacturers are searching for the right tenor of the relationship these days, given everything. I think the two segments flow together pretty well. You'll be surprised at how they overlap in interesting ways. So, little inadvertent theme development, Bri, as so often happens on the podcast.
You mean carefully calculated?
If only I was that clever. But it works. And on top of that, Mike McNulty welcomes Sems Specials Vice President of Sales, Kelly Charles, to talk about the Fastener Distributor Index numbers, which cooled off a little bit in April. Overall, we're still seeing positive sentiment, but it was definitely a noticeable shift, and Kelly and Mike kicked that around a little bit. Plus, we've also got Carmen Vertullo on the episode today. During the NCFA Distributor Social, he did a presentation to sort of warm things up before they opened the doors, and he made a very, I thought, significant offer to the industry. He's starting a mentorship program that is basically just him offering his mentorship to interested people in the fastener industry. This is a very generous offer. That's the theme of this episode's Fastener Training Minute. So if you're somebody who's looking to advance their aptitude in the fastener area, don't miss this one.
Right. That'd be pretty good because Carmen's got a very wide practical knowledge of the industry, and that's a problem, especially as they relate to materials.
He considers himself a generalist, but he has deep knowledge in lots of very important areas, and this is a great opportunity. So if you or somebody in your organization is looking to get a leg up in the fastener game, you should take this very seriously. And speaking of taking things seriously, we take our partners who make this podcast possible quite seriously. We appreciate them, we thank them, and we will announce them now. That's Brian's area. Are you up to it this time, Bri?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I am.
Fire away.
The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Gerbil Fasteners, and Star Stainless Screw Company. Brighton Best International. Tested, tried, and true. Gerbil Fasteners. Quality the first time. Star Stainless Screw Company, right off the shelf for over 70 years. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio are Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Fair USA, InSequel Software, ND Industries, Parker Fasteners, 3Q Inc., Stelfast, Volt Industrial Plastics, Worth Industry North America, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. So we value our sponsors, and we've become, over the years, very friendly with them. We regard them as friends, and we make sure that we look any of them up at the show, especially the one coming up in Detroit, and you should too.
Let them know you appreciate it, folks, and let us know what you think of the podcast if you can. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. Reach out anytime. Tell you how cool our sponsors are, Bri.
Yeah.
Here's yet another example. I was flashing through LinkedIn the other day. There's Global Fasteners sponsoring a Bring Your Fastener Dog to Work Day. I love this. So a couple of great shots out there. Post says, "We received the green light to bring our dogs to work today." They really brighten up the office. Say hello to Emmy, Kiba, and Eddie, and they look like pretty interesting fastener fluffers. Great to see that. Go Goebel.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be able to do that because Sydney isn't that friendly with other dogs. Training is not complete.
Well, he'll make a fine fastener dog someday. He's coming along, Bri. Don't worry.
Yeah, very slowly.
We'll see Team Goebel out in Detroit for sure, as well as most of our other partners. Hope to see you out there as well, folks. We're leaving, actually, as soon as we get done recording this, so that's another reason we're a little rushed, because our plan is to drop another episode right after Fastener Fair USA with on-the-floor interviews, and hopefully the lovely and talented Lynn Dempsey's over her jet lag by that time, too.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll be good. Coming back this way is much easier to get over jet lag than flying to Australia.
Well, you sound really good, so I'm just glad that you were able to make it to record. Well, we're going to jump right into it, and when we come back from the break, we'll launch right into the conversation with Chris Donnell of Scanwell.
Yep.
Just wanted to mention that at the NCFA Distributor Social recently, as I mentioned, Carmen did a fine job of presenting his mentorship program, and he was talking generally about what it takes to up your game as a quality-minded fastener professional. He did a lot of promotion of Smart Cert during that presentation, and a lot of people in the audience got the message. I think Smart Cert is really picking up a lot of momentum because of people like Carmen really giving it a big endorsement, and a lot of companies are picking it up, including one of our other great sponsors, InSequel Software. So a lot of things are merging, and if you're looking for a way to manage all those cumbersome certs, I think what you're going to see is the fastener industry is coalescing around this standard. So that's pretty cool. We'll have more to say about the NCFA Social later, but I will say one other thing that was very, very good to see. I don't know if you got wind of this yet, Bri. Many of you know that Solution Industries founders, John Riddell and Don Shan, haven't been all that conversational the last couple of years, let's just say, although they've been very gentlemanly. And at the recent social, they came in walking arm in arm. It was great to see, shocked a lot of people. I got a really good picture of them together with Jackie, kind of a big deal Ventura, all dressed up in her Cinco de Mayo finest. It was just great, and a lot of good feelings coming out of that event this time. Very good attendance, about 250 people or so, and another success. Congratulations, Dave Audia and the NCFA.
Right, and I should have been there too, except for my 5 times reorganized trip to Australia, which finally came down to that time.
I think this is the first one you've missed, Bri.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we missed you. We had to rearrange a lot of things, but hey, we're back. We're going to get ourselves organized enough to get out to Detroit and I guess first get this episode put together.
Yeah, right.
So let's jump over to our quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment to put a wrench to this one.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone. It's Fully Threaded
Radio.
They're like more cowbell for the fastener industry. Brian and Eric. Fully Threaded Radio.
Brighton-based International offers alloy steel inch and metric series socket products, available in both electro and mechanically zinc-plated finishes that provide superior corrosion resistance for high-strength applications. Electroplated inch socket products are zinc-plated to ASTM F1941, while electroplated metric socket products are zinc-plated to ISO 4042. Both are baked to relieve hydrogen embrittlement and provide a bright finish. Mechanically zinc-plated inch and metric series socket products are plated to ASTM B695. Brighton-based International stocks a full line of socket products off the shelf at all of our nationwide locations for quick fulfillment of your needs. Visit brightonbest.com for convenient 24-hour order placement.
Goebel Fasteners increases efforts to maintain its reputation as the leading rivet source with a large inventory of parts and expedited delivery options. We have over $10 million worth of global inventory in stock at all times and pride ourselves on same-day or next-day shipping options that are available to all our customers. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless.
From the beginning, Star has offered two major things to our customers. First, we stock a large diversified inventory of sizes, with inventory on hand so you can receive it right off the shelf. Second, we offer personal, friendly, efficient service from placing your order all the way to delivery. Star quality is more than products, just the way Wayne wanted it to be. It's simple. We're Star.
Hello, this is Kevin Godin of AFC Industries. You are listening to Brian and Eric on Fully Threaded Radio.
Supply chain issues, and specifically the situation with import transit, continue to top the list of concerns for the fastener industry. Chris Donnell is with Scanwell Logistics, and he shares his vast knowledge and insights in this area with his monthly newsletter. You should all be subscribed to that. We'll get to that when we talk to Chris here in a moment. He's just returned from a command appearance at the Southeast Fastener Association Spring Conference, and he's here with us now to run down the latest. Hey, Chris, thanks for being here. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I always know where to go when I've got supply chain questions, and you're the man. So you started off your most recent Scanwell newsletter by saying you feel like you're in the old Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day with all of this. Why do you say that?
There's just so much going on in the logistics and global supply chain market today that it's difficult to put your thumb on one particular issue that's causing all the problems.
But the same ones keep coming up, don't they?
Over and over and over again. And then you add to what's happening in China right now. It's literally, you feel like a B movie that just keeps playing on repeat.
Right. So there's a lot there, and people, of course, have heard various versions of what's going on in Shanghai and how that is impacting us. So where would you like to begin? I mean, what's the headline? How do we jump into this? We got a little bit of time, so we can cover a few items here.
Well, it's, we can start with China. As you mentioned, there is a lot of misinformation or misguided information that is out there in the market today. And a lot of people don't realize the impact of what is coming down the pipe with regards to China and the COVID situation. When you look at Shanghai as an example, the world's busiest port that did in excess of 47 million containers throughput last year, which in comparison is 5 times larger than the combination of our Long Beach and Los Angeles ports, that being shut down for a month, and containers are only trickling in and out of there. Once Shanghai does come back and manufacturing rebounds, it's going to be a surge of cargo that is going to be hitting our shores. And it's going to repeat of what we saw from June of 2021 up until December, when congestion was at its peak and the ports were inundated with cargo. That alone is going to set us back. Any type of gains that we've had over the past several weeks to a month are all going to be negated, and it's probably going to be worse than we've ever seen. So that's one of the top topics that is out there. We do have people on the ground floor in Shanghai and the surrounding areas, and they have extended the lockdown in Shanghai to at least the 20th of May, which would then, Shanghai being locked down for a month and 2 weeks, month and a half. That's critical. And what's going to happen as soon as, again, going back, the flood of cargo coming to the United States, on the flip side is the carriers are going to have to dig Shanghai out. And that means that they're going to be bypassing a lot of the smaller ports throughout the China region. They're going to be limiting capacity out of some of your larger ports simply to unbury Shanghai. And so you're going to have a lot of congestion that's happening overseas. And then you factor in the bullwhip effect when that cargo hits the United States. There's going to be a run on containers and equipment overseas. The ocean carriers simply cannot move enough empty containers back to fulfill the demand. So that's probably the top issue. It's something that everyone needs to pay attention to. Beijing is now trickling into a potential lockdown. I saw a startling figure about a week ago that 47 cities are in some sort of lockdown throughout China with a population of over 370 million. That's the entire population of the United States, just to kind of put this in context. But so it's a pretty serious situation. And it's certainly something that will impact us through the remainder of this year, if not into the first and second quarter of next.
I've seen those reports also about these expanding lockdowns that they're experiencing over there. And how does that jive with the idea that the Shanghai lockdowns are going to possibly end on May 20th? I don't get that.
Well, every week or so they come out with a new timeline, and China has a zero COVID policy, and they're sticking to it, and there seems to be a power struggle right now that is currently happening in China where they're trying to flex their muscle. They want to eradicate the virus altogether, but in reality, that zero policy is nearly impossible to attain. Today, I'm liking the Delta variant, more like the flu, trying to eradicate the flu. And I just simply think it's impossible to hit that zero number that they're trying to do. And so there is a lot of headwind, from lawmakers and policymakers in China to make amendments to that policy. And we'll see how that goes. But right now, they have no intentions to move away from that. They're looking at more stringent policies, especially in places like Shanghai. Last Monday, they came out with even harsher policy restrictions on travels, people moving in and out of their communities. Also understand that while some manufacturing is still open, the issue with it is they're running out of raw materials to manufacture because there's not enough cargo coming in. And then even if they are able to manufacture, 70% of all truckers surrounding the Shanghai area are sequestered at home, so they can't even move the product. So again, once manufacturing kicks up, the people are allowed back to work, communities open, you're going to start to see a flood of cargo hitting our ports in the United States. And we're going to be back to square one where we were back in June and July, where congestion, and you saw vessels in the hundreds sitting off the coast of Los Angeles. That's going to repeat. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. So we're really at the whim of some bureaucratic fiat here. And let's just make clear that a lot of people question the actual motivations and the so-called science behind all of this. But one way or another, the pretense is that we may or may not be looking at May 20th for things to unwind a little bit here. Now, I was listening, I told you about this before we turned the recorder on, Chris. I was listening to the What the Ship podcast, the May 10th episode, and he was pointing out that the high water mark for the congestion out there on the West Coast, at least off of Long Beach, I think it was 101 ships at the high point. Correct. And it got down to the mid-20s, and then now it's on the upside again. And you're saying that if and when all this congestion does finally open up, it's going to be a wave like we haven't seen before. What would you think that's going to look like?
Well, you already have, and again, there's a lot of different websites out there, maritime.com, where you can actually go see, the vessel sitting off the coast. Again, there's a lot of misinformation about, what is actually out there, what isn't. The Biden administration mandated that there's a 50-mile rule now in place in Los Angeles, Long Beach, where a lot of these vessels have to sit outside of that barrier. So a lot of those vessels aren't actually being counted as congestion, but they're just waiting out there for their time to berth. So there's a lot of misinformation about that. The second thing is those websites are critical just to convey the messages that a lot of us in the industry are trying to show people that there is a big problem. And once China comes fully back, it's going to be a flood. And I would anticipate that flood not to just hit the West Coast, but the East Coast as well. You'll see, places like, Seattle and Tacoma grind to a halt. They're smaller ports, places like Oakland too, smaller ports. They can't handle the infusion of cargo. The Los Angeles Long Beach terminal or the port structure represents 40% of all of our inbound cargo. I mean, that's a huge number. And when you have, 100, 200 vessels sitting off the coast, each carrying in excess of 12,000 TEUs or 20-foot containers, that's a tremendous amount of cargo that's just sitting idle that can't reach to its final destination. And then once it does get here, what do you do with it? There's just so much space at the terminals. There's just so much space on the rail. Okay. There's just so much warehouse space in LA to transload this. Okay. The warehouse capacity in Los Angeles right now, the available warehouse capacity is less than 1%. What do we do? So a lot of importers are switching to the East Coast. We're already seeing massive delays in terms of getting containers out of the port of New York and New Jersey, and then getting them returned. Right now, we've seen containers that have been, outgated out of the ports of New York and New Jersey that have been sitting there for an excess of 2 to 3 weeks. And unfortunately, the ocean carrier in the terminal are going to charge per diem, and that has to be passed on to the consumer. So there's a lot of things that once China opens up, we're going to potentially hit a barrier within the supply chain that is far worse than what we've ever seen.
Okay, so I think listeners are beginning to get the understanding of why you feel like it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and that's just one of the things that are happening. You look at the ILWU. There's a lot of mixed emotions about the International Longshoremen Warehouse Union as their contract expires July 1st. In comparison to 2015, when the last contract expired. There was a lot of turmoil. The slowdown, as I will call it, it wasn't a full-blown lockout. The slowdown really only lasted about 6 to 8 days, but the residual fallout for that was, months of trying to recoup, the volumes that were stranded elsewhere. However, we live in different times now. The government is much more on the pulse of what's happening with it. They understand the damage that any type of slowdown or work stoppage could cause to our economy, to the global supply chain, because a lot of these carriers, they're trying to flip these containers as quickly as they can and bring them back to the origin. Once that grinds to a halt, nothing is moving, which is, again, counterproductive to any type of growth. Inflation is going to skyrocket or potentially skyrocket. So the government is very much on the pulse. They're working side by side with the PMA as well as the ILWU union on a daily basis just to make sure that the communication channels are open and things are working as positively as they can. Will they start work slowdowns? We don't know, but I think we're in a much better place than we were, the last time we went through this. And I think there's a lot of advantages to the PMA as well as to the ILWU to make this work. Will there be a contract signed before the July 1st? I'm 90% sure that's not going to happen. But they are working closer than they ever have, the two parties. And with the government involved, I don't think it's going to be as impactful as it was in 2015, 2016. But there is a lot of fear mongering out in the market. And so a lot of importers right now, and they have been for the past few months, shifting their West Coast moves to the East Coast. And that's causing issues in Savannah, New York, and New Jersey, as I made mention earlier. But the big thing that importers truly don't understand is there's only about 35% of our total ocean capacity that comes from the Pac Rim that goes through the Panama Canal. Only 35% of those vessels are equipped to handle volume going through the Panama Canal in terms of size. The average vessel going through the Panama Canal is only 12,000 TEUs, which is far smaller than what we're seeing on the West Coast. So capacity is, will be at an all-time premium. Importers should expect rates to skyrocket once the China market opens. We have seen a lull in ocean costs for the past several weeks. We have seen roughly about a 3 to 5% drop in ocean costs. The carriers that are still moving cargo out of China are seeing capacity drop considerably, which is in direct correlation with the rate drop. But once China opens, that's gone, and there will be a dramatic uptick in ocean costs. And so importers need to prepare for that. But I don't think the issues with the ILWU will be nearly as bad as they were back in 2015, 2016. And so again, back to where we are in the event that there is any type of significant shutdown, that's even going to further cripple with any type of congestion, any type of movement of cargo within the continental United States. And then you look at on a basis between communication between the port terminals. Most carriers today have on-dock rail facilities, meaning that the container is offloaded from a vessel, it's put directly onto a rail car, and then it leaves its origin port for its destination. Well, there certainly is a huge disconnect between your Class 1 carriers, those being on the West Coast, UP, the Union Pacific, and the Burlington Northern, with the terminals. And the terminals today are focusing everything that they can to get as much cargo moving as possible. I saw a stat yesterday where there's 160,000 containers sitting at the port of Los Angeles Long Beach that is destined for the rail. The average rail cars can handle upwards of about 100 to 120 ocean containers. So imagine how much time it's going to take to move 160, and that's what they have now. So there's a tremendous amount of disconnect between the ocean terminals and the rail. The rail right now is trying to dig out, their Midwest terminals, places like Chicago, Kansas City, Memphis. These rail terminals are so highly congested that they just can't handle any more cargo going in. We're seeing record numbers of delays in Chicago. Truck lines that are 50 to 100 deep in multiple lanes. The lack of chassis that are plaguing the continental United States because of the sheer demand of cargo is just adding to more of these excess charges that are being passed along to the consumers. And then you look at the lack of truckers. And I was at a conference 2 days ago put on by the American Transport Association, and right now they've said that they're roughly, for drayage and line haul truckers, some 80,000 truckers short in terms of handling the current demand. And they're anticipating by 2026 to be more than 160 to 180,000 drivers short. And this is going to be a continuing issue for years and years to come as a lot of truckers are retiring from the industry. There's a lot of things that are happening in the trucking industry that is making it unfavorable for new applicants to join that industry. Coercion filings from truckers are up 30% year over year versus at same time last year.
What does that exactly mean?
A lot of truckers are going to a place for a pickup, as an example, and they'll pick up cargo. And once they try to deliver it, they're told not to. That basically the tenderer who gave the load is basically using the truck for additional warehousing space. And so he'll say, okay, you got to deliver this container or this shipment to Colorado, and it's got to be there by Friday. And he'll do everything he can to get there by Friday. And then they'll say, no, can't accept you to a week from now. And the trucker is basically stuck on his own time until next Friday to make that delivery. And that's one issue. Or the driver will get to the place of delivery, and typically you get a 2-hour window for delivery. You have to have that cargo or unloaded within 2 hours, or additional costs are incurred. And the receiving party refuses to pay for that. And they'll sit there and say, well, if you're not going to do it, too bad. We'll find somebody else.
Right. So all these things are making it less desirable to get into the industry.
Correct. And then you factor in, the government has stringent policy on who can actually operate a truck, especially if you're crossing state lines. You have to be 21. The new drug testing that they're trying to mandate. And then you look at the mask mandate. Some companies are still requiring drivers to wear a mask, and unfortunately, it has become a big issue. So there's a lot of things that are counterproductive to bringing on a lot of bodies that are desperately needed within this industry. And this is, like I said, this is something that's going to be around for a long, long time. And then you also factor in the issues with fuel. I was just listening to the news this morning, and they're talking a massive shortage on the East Coast of diesel fuel, which, again, all of our trucks operate on. So if there is a spike, which we have seen over the past several months, a spike in fuel, that also cuts down a lot on driver capacity, because a lot of these drivers are owner operators, and it's just becoming too expensive for them to operate a truck. And so they're getting out of the industry. And so, and I tell every time I do a speaking engagement or I'm in front of a client is, hug a trucker, because they are our lifeline. 75 to 80% of all product that is moved within the continental United States is moved by truck. It is incredibly important that we grow this industry, but unfortunately, a lot of bureaucratic issues that are taking place, as well as just consumer putting such a high demand on them with very little return. So it's a big mess. It really is, and it's probably one of our biggest issues today, because it's not just affecting the inbound cargo. It's factoring into manufacturing across the board. Transportation costs just for trucking has gone up somewhere at 40% over the past 2 years. That's a huge number, considering how much cargo they're actually moving. So again, going back to the whole Groundhog Day, these are things that are just happening on a regular basis. And we see these peaks and valleys, and it just, from one week to the next, it's a different chain. A positive, I would say, that for those importers is the Biden administration is looking into reviewing the Section 301 tariffs. And this is important because back in 2016-17, when this was proposed and enacted, it basically, for $300 billion worth of product coming in the United States, it put a huge levy of tariffs onto Chinese-made product. And the current administration is looking into possibly amending that, excluding certain product. We won't know for a while until when their final conclusion comes out, but they are reviewing it. Section 301, also known as the Trump tariff, was really looked upon as a step to bolster U.S. manufacturing, hoping to bring some of that manufacturing back to the United States. In terms of whether that was a positive and that allowed that remains to be seen. It all depends on who you're talking to and what side of the parameters that you fall. But something to keep in mind with this tariff, United States is the only westernized country in the world that does not have some sort of value-added tax or GST program. And I think that was their goal, is to establish something similar to that, but focus on China. But there's so much going on. I literally can talk for hours about everything that's happening.
That's exactly why I invited you back onto the podcast, Chris, and I appreciate the brain dump. There is a ton. A lot of it is groundhogish, but some of these details are unfolding and they're novel, so it's good to get the update from you. Let's talk briefly about air freight, because a lot of people are using air freight, or they're thinking about it as a way to get around what's going on with the sea freight. So what can you say about that briefly? Well,
air freight, and I'll take a step back, go back to 2021, where in the early part of 2021 was, basically it was a shutdown. The only thing that was really moving via air freight was PPE product. June hit, and that's when we started to see the massive congestion starting to ramp up for ocean freight. And a lot of importers rely on impulse buying, and so we saw a lot of product which typically never. And I'll use the fastener industry as an example, which air freight in this industry is kind of a dirty word, simply because it's so costly. But we saw a lot of companies start gravitating towards that to fulfill the demand of their particular product and the sales that they were going through. Today, air freight has stabilized somewhat, and I use that term loosely because there still are a lot of travel restrictions out there that are hindering the use of freighters and product into certain countries. So we're seeing a lot of airlines now convert passenger cargo or passenger planes into cargo planes, where they're literally strapping cartons of product into seats that were typically used by a passenger, and now it's moving cargo. We are seeing issues with coming out of the South Pacific, where the demand is far outweighing the capacity. So you are seeing some spikes in the ocean market, but primarily the ocean freight market has stabilized, especially coming out of China. And one would think that with the shutdown of the PVG airport in Shanghai, which is one of the world's busiest in terms of cargo, that there would be a huge spike in costs due to that volume being diverted to places like Ningbo or Nanjing or these other locations. But that simply hasn't been the case. I do think that the reason behind that is the reduction in manufacturing. So once we see China starting to open up, they allow cargo to flow through PVG Airport in Shanghai, we are going to see a huge swing in air costs. Chartering right now is a big option. We are doing multiple charters. Most forwarders, I'm sure, are doing those, where they're actually commandeering the entire aircraft and filling it and bringing it to places like to Chicago or Dallas or Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles. One of the biggest issues in the air freight market, not so much the getting capacity on an aircraft, is it's once it gets here. We have seen over the past probably 6 to 7 months where these airline terminals are so inundated with cargo, and people are utilizing, or importers are utilizing these warehouses as makeshift, warehousing, free warehousing. Whereas previous pandemic, the airlines would give you, 3 days of free time to pull your shipment out of there. They have now shored that up to where you're less than 24 hours. Pre-pandemic, the average storage cost per kilo was right around 10 to 20 cents per kilo. We have seen in certain locations, in certain airline terminals throughout the country, exceed $1, $1.20, $1.40 per kilo per day in terms of storage, which is paramount. And we also see where truckers will go into these airline terminals with an appointment to pick up at 8 a.m., and they won't be serviced until 5, 6 o'clock at night. And so there's a lot of wait time that's happening at these airline terminals. So if you are utilizing this type of service, God bless you. We love you. Keep shipping via air freight, but understand that nights, weekends, holidays, the airlines count those. So if you have a shipment that's coming in on a Friday, but your doors are not opening until Sunday, you can expect to see a pretty hefty storage charge upon that. And we haven't even talked about how long that driver is going to be sitting there trying to pick up that shipment. And again, a driver's time range anywhere from $45 an hour to $100 an hour. So if he's there for eight hours, you now have to pay that driver $800 just to sit there to pick up your cargo on top of these massive storage fees. So that is an issue. And then you get to, we are seeing a big increase in misrouted cargo from these airline terminals, because what's happening is with the shortage of qualified pilots, a lot of airlines are now shifting to a lot of line haul movements, meaning you may have a shipment that is going to Philadelphia, as an example, from Shanghai or from Hong Kong. The airline will fly it to Dulles or to Atlanta, and instead of taking a connection flight to Philadelphia, they'll put it onto a truck and then truck it to Philadelphia, then tender that cargo to its beneficial cargo owner. The problem being with that is we're seeing airlines now, their claims increase dramatically, simply because there's such a huge influx of freight, and they're just trying to push as much cargo out as they possibly can. So the claims processes, or the number of claims that they are having to go through on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis is growing quite substantially.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. I mean, with the volume they're doing and all the pressure, it's bound to increase mistakes, and
yep,
you're seeing it. Well, this is just there's a lot going on. Chris, you're a fountain of knowledge, and appreciate everything you have to say. I want to ask you again about some of the misconceptions out there. You were at the CIFA conference, and your reaction was that there are a lot of misconceptions. What's the number one thing that you think people are getting wrong about this situation right now that you want to rectify?
Oh, the number one is easy. I had a lot of comments where they think this congestion, the current destabilization of the global supply chain will end relatively soon. And that simply is not going to be the case.
Where are people getting that idea?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think for me, I'm always kind of a black and white kind of guy, and I tell it as it is, whether good or bad. I think it's very important for me to provide my clients with the knowledge that's what's happening in the market. And I do have a leg up on a lot of my competitors because we have boots on the ground floor at most origins. So I do get a lot of firsthand information of what's happening versus what's in print. I think there's a lot to be said about what's out there and what people are reading. I think is biased based upon what side of the pendulum that the writer deemed that day was appropriate to write about. But I will tell you, by far the biggest question I have, or the biggest comment I get is, this will be over by June or July or August, and that's simply not going to be the case. I can tell you that firsthand. We're looking at just the analytics that we have done internally with my company. We're looking at the first quarter of 2023 as being where we may see a return to a new normal. I also, get a lot of comments about the global supply chain and are we going to revert back to the way we were, pre-pandemic? And it is my fear that yes, that will happen. And I don't think enough people have thought about how to rectify their supply chain to make them more robust when things such as this happen. And I understand COVID was, a once in a century type thing. But, every, 4 or 5 years, something catastrophic happens in our industry. But a lot of companies today are reliant on one country. They may have 5 suppliers in China and that's it. And so when China goes through a shutdown, what do you do? It's incredibly difficult to flip that switch to I'm going to start importing from another country. So I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, I simply can't. I've had these relationships with these manufacturers for years, and I can't possibly change. And no one's asking you to cancel those relationships. But I have a fear, and I say this because I've been doing this for 25 plus years, where we're going to revert back to the way we were doing things pre-pandemic, which is kind of what got us into this situation, because the supply chain, I don't know, it's often overlooked. It really is. A lot of companies are not really looking at their supply chain to manage their costs. They're looking at, the transportation providers and suppliers and squeeze them. My thing is just look at multi-country manufacturing, nearshoring, instead of relying on one country, look at multiple countries. You've got, especially in the fastener industry, you've got countries like Vietnam that's coming on board, and we're seeing a huge increase from Vietnam. Thailand, India. I have seen massive growth for fasteners out of India right now. And then you look at places like Turkey and Europe. Our imports, just for the company I work for, our imports for Europe for fasteners have grown exponentially. 3 years ago when the euro was so strong, it was almost, you just couldn't do it, especially in large buys. Now that's happening on a regular basis. So one gentleman that I met at the conference was like, I haven't really given much thought to the relationships and where I'm buying. And to me, that's kind of startling, because you really have to look at that. You also got to look at, I get the misconception that the issues between China and Taiwan, it's all just saber rattling. And that may be, but what would happen if Taiwan and Shanghai, arguably the largest exporters of fasteners to North America, were some sort of conflict happen? That's a big issue that could potentially happen. I also get a lot of comments that, the Ukraine-Russia conflict, it's really not going to impact the United States. Well, dead wrong there. I was reading a transcript that I got from our office over in Europe, where I forget the writer who wrote it, but they mentioned that today there's basically 360,000 companies that export are solely reliant on Russian exports. Okay. That is their supply chain model. Okay. And the startling thing is 70% of those were North American companies. Okay, so what do they do? With all of the sanctions and embargoes that are currently happening, companies have to start investing into their supply chain, looking at what could potentially happen versus just going by based upon the cost of labor, things of that nature.
Chris, I think that's very good advice, and Fully Threaded listeners are going to want to make sure to stay tuned for the second feature segment on today's episode, because Preston Boyd with the IFI shares a lot of your thinking there. So I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, while you're speaking, I'm saying to myself, I better get my crate ready to ship out for the Vegas show, because I don't know if it'll be there in time, even if I send it next week after Detroit.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay, but
can you help me out, Chris?
I can, but again, and I know, there's just so much going on, and I do see a lot of companies that I don't want to say they're giving misconception, because there are companies out there that they don't want to provide all this detail, because a lot of forwarders take advantage of that situation, and to kind of keep people in the dark, or they feel that they don't want to provide just constant negativity. I send out my newsletter monthly, and certain people are like, "Are you ever going to give me good news again?" And I'm like, well, as soon as the market changes, the first thing I'm going to do is send you good news. But I'd rather paint the correct picture than a picture that's skewed for some reason.
Right. Well, that's why people like hearing from you, and that's why they like doing business with Scanwell. How do they reach out to you to get that monthly newsletter if they're not already on the list?
Well, they certainly email me at Chris Donnell, at ChrisDonnell at Scanwell.com, or they can give me a call at 847-228-6789.
Always a pleasure, Chris. You're a wealth of knowledge. You shared it generously with us. We appreciate it.
I certainly appreciate the time to talk today.
Chris Donnell, Scanwell Logistics. Lots going on. I have no doubt that we could talk for a lot longer too, but right now we're going to leave it here. Thanks again, Chris, and thanks everybody for listening. It's Fully Threaded Radio.
Hey, sport, you don't look so good.
Man, all this walking at the Fastener Show is wearing me out. I don't know if I can keep going.
I think I have just a thing to help you out, son. Have you ever heard of Old Rusty Bolt beer?
No, what is it?
Why, it's only the tastiest, most refreshing, ice-coldest beer around. The amber goodness of Old Rusty Bolt beer is enough to jumpstart any weary fastener salesman.
I'll try one. Wow, I feel better already. Hey, mister, what's that name again?
Old Rusty Bolt beer, brought to you by the fine folks at Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company.
Old Rusty Bolt, that's the name, that name again, Old Rusty Bolt.
Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
Parker Fasteners is your premier cold heading manufacturer, forging the future with precision and quality as our top priority. When you think of domestically produced sockets and tamper-proof screws from alloy and stainless, including A286, think Parker Fasteners. Forge the future with Parker Fasteners. Visit Parker Fasteners online today at parkerfasteners.com.
Harry, how's your search for new software going?
We've looked at a lot of systems, some with the same old technology, and others didn't seem like they knew much about what we did or needed. We did look at one company, crazy name though, I think it was InSqueakWell.
You mean INXSQL? That's InSQL. That's what we use. We've become much more efficient, and we've been able to offer our customers more services, which makes us more competitive.
Yeah, Inkswell, that's the one. They seem to be the only company that really understood what fastener distributors do for a living, and I found it easy to use.
Harry, it's InSQL, INXSQL. You don't pronounce the X. We buy a lot from several master distributors, and their direct connect simplifies the whole process. When we need pricing and availability quickly, we just hit the F12 key.
If you don't pronounce the X, why put it in there? A friend told me they get great support from NXQuell.
Yes, with InSequel, our experience has been the same. Quality support. They know our business. And the best part is, no extra charges. With our old system, apparently nothing we called about was covered by support.
You know, Inkwell seems to be the right company for us.
They're called InSequel, INXSQL. Go to their website, www.inxsql.com, or call them at 877-446-9775.
This is Holden Lewis of Fastenal, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you, shadowboxing the fastener apocalypse.
The oncoming apocalypse.
I just heard your bird in the background. I guess that reminds you of Australia, doesn't it?
I'd like to say yes, though the birds in Australia are generally much more unpleasantly squawky.
We did a whole episode years ago surrounding the kookaburra.
Yeah, right. We had one outside the bloody window when we were partly recording in Sydney.
You can't get away from it, Bri. Let's face it, it's in your blood.
Oh.
Well, this is the news section of the podcast, everyone. It's brought to us once again by Volt Industrial Plastics, and the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Star Stainless Screw, and Goebel Fasteners. Mike McNulty's got a full boat again this time, but just a couple of items before we pass it over to him. Flash, just before we turn the mics on, from Rick Rudolph of Rudolph Associates, well-known manufacturers rep Southeast. He was announcing that Morgan Rudolph, his son and business partner, has just been elected president of the New England Fastener Distributors Association. Congratulations, Morgan.
Yes.
It's high time we had those two guys back on the podcast. They're always a blast to talk to.
And to go to rugby matches with.
There's a never-ending number of topics you can discuss with those guys. You know, one was a world-class rugby player, one was a charter captain, you know, and they're both in the fastener industry, and they both got a few miles on them, especially Rick in that department. But great guys, great news. So the NEFDA, new president, Morgan Rudolph.
Cool.
In other association news, now McNulty, I think, mentions this, but we'll just say it again to emphasize. The MWFA Fastener Week is coming up in August, and this is something that everyone in the Midwest, actually everyone in the fastener industry, should strongly consider attending. It's August 21st to the 26th, a full boat of activities, including on the 23rd, their 40th Fastener Show. This is a tabletop format. It's short, sweet. It's at the Hilton Oakbrook Hills Resort, which is a change of venue this time, I believe.
Right, yeah.
And it's always a good time, always solid networking. They do a wonderful job with it. They've also got their golf outing, a big mixer happening, and Fastener Training Week is going on in the background of this whole thing. So a lot of activities. Get out to mwfa.net for details. Plus, don't forget the Rugged Maniacs. What is it, a 5K race? Yeah, I believe it's a 5K obstacle course race is happening. Bob GQ Bear and GH3 have organized this thing. I think there are still a few slots left on the team, although it's an all-star group that's running this race, and you're invited. So if you have an inkling, reach out either to George or Bob, or you can catch us at the show or just email us at ftr@fullythreaded.com. We'll get you all the info you need. It's a lot of fun, the Rugged Maniacs 5K.
Yeah, and even if you can't run, you at least participate by cheering everyone on and keeping their spirits up, okay? So go and watch.
Oh, the cheering section is very important. And, Brian, it's good to have you back there as the armor bearer and to know there's a support staff with us, too. So you never know. I mean,
you never know. You're right.
Things happen.
It's a lot of fun. Fun day.
Last, right before we get to McNulty, and I think he mentions this, too, but we'll just say congratulations to Baron Yarborough, because he got picked up by Birmingham Fastener, who recently acquired Champion Manufacturing, and he's going to be the GM of that company. And Baron's been on the podcast many times. A lot of you in the industry know him. Yeah. He's an up-and-comer. He's a great guy. Congratulations, Baron.
Yeah, it was kind of a shock. I mean, you dumped that on me, and I was a little bit surprised. But then again, Birmingham Fasteners, long-time friend and member of Fasteners Clearinghouse, so couldn't have gone to a better company, I think.
It seems like a really good fit. And yes, Barron was the face of Spring Bolt, and he took that company a long way. And hey, you never know how things will progress. He's got a long career ahead of him. He's done an enthusiastic and competent job at everything he set out to do. So
yep, true.
It'll be fun to watch him continue on his career. And with that, we'll pass it off to Mike McNulty. Brian, would you please do the honors in your jet-lagged state?
Well, I should get my words all muddled up then, I guess.
It'll be fun. Go ahead.
Yeah. And now, for news about screws that you can use, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. Acceptable baseball weather is finally showing its face in the Midwest states of the USA, but over the course of the next 2 months, I'm heading to Detroit, Michigan and Dusseldorf, Germany for 2 fastener industry trade shows, which means I am really focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Sems Specials Vice President of Sales, Kelly Charles, joins us from Rockford, Illinois, to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story on Birmingham Fastener, as well as newsmaker headlines from NBK America, Novaria Group, American Axle, Optimus Solutions, MSC Industrial, Lawson Products, G&G Safety Fasteners, and more. On the back page report, we're going to talk about market reports. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
My name is Joseph Otrower. We got really good people. Work ethic, you know. You do a little more than what you're getting paid for. You know, I'm a great believer in that. That's how you get ahead.
We are Volt.
If you grow too fast, you can go broke real quick. And growing too slow is not as dangerous, but it's boring.
We are Volt.
We know how to build the tools, and if you don't have the tools, you can't do anything.
Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
Since 1985, the U.S. Anchor product line from Brighton Best International has consistently supplied distributors and end users with high-quality light, medium, and heavy-duty anchoring systems. As the anchoring business has matured over time, new products have been added to the U.S. Anchor lineup to meet the demands required on job sites and industrial facilities. This growth is due to a commitment to invest in product testing to meet and exceed strict industry standards. These new products deliver better performance and improved ease of installation. BBI consistently delivers high fill rates of U.S. Anchor products from 21 regional warehouses. For more information on all U.S. Anchor product lines, please visit www.brightonbest.com/US_anchor.
Solution Man, Ken.
Solution Man, you're my fastener hero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
SOLUTION, SOLUTION. Solution Industry. We are Solution.
Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for April 2022 was 52.6, a sizable drop from the previous month's result of 57.2. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to Kelly Charles, Vice President of Sales at Sems Specials, as well as the Associate Chair and Learning Committee Chair at the NFDA. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You're welcome. It's good to have you here. This is, tune in to listeners that this is Kelly's first time in the FDI seat on the Fastener News Report. And we'll start off by asking, what do you think about the latest FDI results?
I don't think that these are a surprise. I think we are going to start to see demand slow just a little bit for a couple reasons. I think that people are starting to see their imports start to come in. And I also feel that some of the distributors have bought a little bit heavy over the last maybe year and a half. And I think those inventory levels are going to start slowing the demand.
Yeah, I think the one of the comments they were talking about, people were reducing their panic buying, which you've alluded to, is the overbuying is kind of slowed down, so that's definitely taking a factor. And one point I want to bring up: this is actually the lowest FDI results in September of 2020. I went back through the numbers, so that was a little surprising that it's dropped down that far. But it's still, I want to remind everybody, it's still above 50, which is in the growth stage. It's just a slower growth than we've seen over the last almost 2 years.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the big factor when we look into the details of the number, the sales number for this month actually took a nosedive down to 60.5, also a low level. It was the lowest level since October of 2021. So that really had an impact on the overall FDI result for this time around.
For sure. Well, and I see a big drop in employment. And I know that's something that I think across the board, everybody is struggling with, attracting, keeping employees, especially in the more entry-level positions. It's getting more and more difficult as the competition is just strong for those employees.
Right. I think every episode that I can remember, that's been an issue that people have talked about, even, saying, hey, we're hiring, check us out. But so, yeah, you're right. The employment number did drop down for the first time that I can remember. We also saw that you mentioned earlier that inventory is coming down. So the inventory numbers rose, which means people's inventories are growing. Pricing stayed very high, which is not a surprise either. And you've got factors like stainless steel, and that still being a big problem with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, the stainless steel pricing as well as the availability just plays into the uncertainty that everybody's dealing with stainless.
Is that a big part of your product mix?
It's a bigger section than it used to be, but we're mostly in the steels and the alloys. But yeah, stainless is something where we really have to check that availability more carefully. We're stocking more wire than we used to, only because the availability in the spot buy market is just not there.
An ongoing problem, doesn't look like it's going to, which is also related to supply chain issues as well. So not surprising, let's move on to the forward-looking indicator. Also took a big hit. It went down to 55.1. And I looked this one up too, and it's actually the lowest recording in almost 2 years. Had to go back to August of 2020 to see a number lower than 55.1, which is, again, still a positive number, but it's not as bullish or robust as it has been over the last 12 to 20 months. Would you guys concur with that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I still see growth happening over the next couple quarters, but we do see the activity starting to tick back just slightly. So we're still in the positive, but it's not as crazy as it was maybe 12 months ago.
Well, maybe, some people have also talked over the last several months that we've talked about this, that, they were fatigued. So this is a time for everybody to kind of regroup and catch up and get back a little bit to normal.
Whatever normal means at this point.
Right. And now we're ramping up business travel, and that's it'll take a little bit getting used to, I think.
Exactly. But it certainly is nice to get back out there and see people face to face. Our customers are letting us in the door, more than they have in the last 2 years. People, again, are traveling to different association events. Fingers crossed that everything continues to go well in that regard, because there's definitely some pent-up demand for these activities.
Right. Now, before we got on the recording, you had mentioned that you just came back from the North Coast Fastener Association Distributor Social. So how was that?
It was great. I went last year for the first time, and I think they had about 200 attendees, which, just coming out of COVID, I thought was spectacular. And this event was even better. There were people from all over the country. Everybody was just happy to see each other, and Cinco de Mayo certainly didn't put a damper on things.
Added to the festivities.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good to hear. And let's move on. We've touched a little bit on looking forward, but now the 6-month outlook. Also, I want to report those numbers. They moderated as well. We had 41% of respondents expecting conditions to be better 6 months from now. 41 expecting them to be same, and 19 expecting them to be worse, which is maybe a pretty high number compared over the last 2 years. But again, still pretty good. 82% say business is going to be as good as it is right now or better.
For sure.
Okay, some of the big themes that people were saying, in their commentary were slowing growth amid material shortages, a spring break factor, as well as reduced panic buying, which we mentioned earlier. Do you guys see a factor with spring break, people slowing down in business because of that?
I honestly haven't.
That's the first time I heard that.
Yeah, I thought that was an odd observation, but I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to commentary. And we had one respondent said seeing some markets slowing, however, other parts of our business are still growing. Another respondent said business is starting to taper, panic buying is over, and product is slowly arriving in. However, there are many concerns over the upcoming longshoreman workers contract discussions. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. I think everybody's sort of monitoring the longshoreman situation, just because if that happens, it's something that I think could take years to recover from.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that, say, they strike and then they go back to work. There's going to be such a backlog of what they need to work through. I would be really surprised if the government would allow a strike to happen, but we'll see.
Be like air traffic controls from the 1980s.
Kinda, yeah.
Most listeners probably don't remember that, but I do. Yeah, that would. I mean, the timing. But you mentioned earlier what's normal, and then we've talked lots of times. We talk about expect the unexpected. So who knows what's going to happen? But that would be pretty bad timing. Okay, let's see other comments. Said one person said, although we were above the goal this month, we had a 2-week slowdown coinciding with the spring break. There's the spring break comment. Material for specialty fasteners continues to be the biggest factor limiting our revenue growth. Even with that being said, our revenue is 30% higher year on year. So there's that conundrum where things are slowing down and they're difficult, but still way better than they were last year. So hear that a lot. Let's see. Other comments we had. Incoming orders continue to be very strong. Material pricing still on the rise, especially stainless steel, but at least we're getting regular deliveries again. Lead times on new orders are stretching out to 4 to 6 months, depending on material. And the final comment was sales are still performing well above historical levels, despite the supply chain challenges. All kinds of good things and challenging things going on still in the fastener industry. Anything to add on those comments, or any comments that you're hearing from your customers or colleagues?
It's just, I've been in the industry for 32 years. And so I've seen the market go up, the market go down, material go up, material go down. But what we're going through this past year and a half, it's like a 4-headed monster. And just, you think you have one thing under control, and then there's just some other issue that pops up. So it's a challenging time to be in sales. But I think might be even more challenging to be on that purchasing side, trying to hedge your customers' demands at a price where your company is still profitable. It's a lot right now.
Yeah. Well, I like that term, 4-headed monster. That's a good, and in a couple months, it might have more than 4 heads.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. One of the heads is just going to say, okay, hold my beer.
Yeah. Right. We'll start have to lopping off some of those heads.
Right.
Yeah, it is unique times. That's for sure. All right. Well, so, here we have, in summary, the FDI has tempered quite a bit this month, and, some long-time lows, but still in a positive range. But I think it's maybe kind of just a whole settling down, maybe coming back to normal. I think that may be what we're looking at. Okay, well, let's move on. And what can you tell us about what's going on at Sems and Specials?
Oh, we've got all sorts of good things going on at Sems Specials. We've just hired a couple new salespeople, which is exciting because they bring a different perspective to our business. So that's exciting. We're still working 24-hour shifts, trying to catch up with the demand. We're blessed in that we have a lot of business, and now it's just a matter of trying to get it out the door, dealing with the staffing issues, and trying to find qualified operators. But all in all, super positive here. For those that don't know much about us, we're a cold header based out of Rockford, Illinois. We go from a number 2 up through a 1/2-inch diameter and 1/8 inch up to 5 inches long. We sell primarily to distribution. That's 99% of what we do. And we do a lot of stock and release. We try to think of ourselves as an extension of our distributor customers, and we do our best to keep them satisfied, which is a tall order in this crazy market.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I was on your website, which listeners can find at Sems and Specials, A&D, specials.com. You've got lots of products and you serve lots of different industries and associations. And so it seems that you guys are pretty active in the whole fastener industry. So I encourage listeners to check it out. Also, I saw here, I know you mentioned you've been in the fastener industry for 32 years, but you're coming up on your 20th anniversary at Sems and Specials.
I am.
Yeah. So you have any plans for that?
Oh, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to celebrate that milestone. Probably by doing some quotes.
Yeah, doing what you're good at, right?
Oh, exactly. We're all, it's just a big balancing act right now. Like I said, we're trying to get the best production that we can get through the shop, which means trying to run like product together. But then there's 7 salespeople who all want what they want. So trying to get the good numbers while satisfying our customers is a bit of a balancing act.
Well, you guys are located in what some people call the heart of the fastener industry. Definitely the heart of the fastener industry out there in Rockford. So
it's lovely this time of year. So
finally, right?
Exactly.
Now, we mentioned at the top that you're also you're involved with different associations, and in particular, you're chairing up some committees at the NFDA. So what can you tell us about what's going on with the NFDA?
Well, we have our one of my favorite events coming up. We have our annual meeting and ESPS coming up in June 21st to the 23rd. And ESPS stands for Executive Sales and Planning Sessions. And the way that works is that our associates, which are, the manufacturers, service providers, etc., are able to invite our distributor customers for half-hour meetings that occur during the day. It's almost like a little speed dating session. And the distributor customers are able to request those appointments as well. And it's a good opportunity to get together face-to-face and talk about what's going on. We did it as a virtual event last year, which was great, but nothing's ever going to take the place of those face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good way to break down the barriers of, just at a table and you got 30 minutes, which is, plenty of time to get to know each other.
Right. Oh, and it's a great opportunity for, our distributor customers and our associates alike to really see, a good chunk of their customer base over, a day and a half session. So I would encourage, we invite obviously our members, but our non-member distributors to attend as well. And in addition to those meetings, we also have some educational events. We have ITR that's going to speak on the state of the economy. And then we also have our State of the Industry panel. And I'm excited about this because we're covering just every aspect of the industry. We have Joe Koshin from Elgin Fastener, Angela Philippart from AFC, Tim Roberto from Star Stainless, and they'll just be talking about, the challenges that we're facing, best practices, and lots of questions and answers. And it is moderated by our own Eric Dudas from Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, that sounds like a really good panel and a really good MC to host it, as well as the ITR economic presentations. Everyone that I have attended or listened to have been really well worth the time and lots of good information shared. So it sounds like you got a good program put together.
Yep, we're excited about it. Excited to get back together in person. This will be our first in-person event in 2 years. My education committee, last year we did monthly educational virtual events, and this year we scaled that back to quarterly since we are going to be having some in-person events. But I'm always looking for suggested topics, things that are relevant, things that the industry wants to talk about. So anybody is welcome to reach out to me with your programming ideas, and we'd love to know what you think.
We got a lot of good things going on at the NFDA as well as at Sems Specials. So keep up the good work, and congratulations on what you've done so far.
Well, thank you.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights on the FDI as well as what's going on at Sems and Specials and the NFDA with our listeners. It's been good to talk to you. You did a good job on your first time, and hope it won't be your last time.
Oh, I hope not. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
That was Sems and Specials Vice President of Sales, Kelly Charles. She's also the Associate Chair and Learning Committee Chair at the NFDA. The FDI number for April was 52.6 versus 57.2 in March. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. Birmingham Fastener has been busy this last month. It promoted Rodney Holmes to VP of Sales. It acquired Champion Sales and Manufacturing Incorporated, a rubber gasket company in Texas, and it hired Baron Yarborough to manage its sales activities at Champion. With 17 years of sales experience, Holmes was previously sales manager at Birmingham Fastener Manufacturing, and in his new role, he will oversee sales of the company's 10-plus companies nationwide. With over 100 years of combined experience in the rubber gasket industry, the Champion acquisition strengthens Birmingham Fastener's waterwork product offering and manufacturing diversity. Champion manufactures mechanical joint, push-on, and other gaskets for the waterworks industry. Yarborough has been a rising worker in the fastener industry and is currently the chairman of the Southwest Fastener Association. In his new role, Baron Yarborough will be leading the manufacturing and sales activities of rubber gaskets for the waterworks industry at Champion. Next up for today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In acquisition and expansion news, NBK America LLC has acquired Solid Spot LLC. Fastco of Charlotte has been sold to an unnamed private investor. Bufab Group has acquired all outstanding shares of CDA Polska. Novaria Group signed a definitive agreement to acquire FMI Chemical, Incorporated. Prime Source Brands has acquired Axis LLC, and American Axle and Manufacturing Holdings, Incorporated, also known as AAM, entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Tefcor Group. In personnel and representation news, Paul Shore has been appointed Chief Information Officer at Optimus Solutions. Gobel Fasteners named AM Supply as an official authorized distributor for its products and tooling. And John Hill has joined MSC Industrial Supply Company as Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Information Officer. In name change news, Lawson Products Incorporated announced its name change to Distribution Solutions Group Incorporated, also known as DSG. And G&G Safety Fasteners LLC has changed its name to Grauer Metal USA LLC. You can get details on these and more stories in Fastener Technology International Magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about market reports. Over the last several years, there has seemed to be an abundance of market reports published online and circulated through various media outlets. Some are good, while others seem to be generated by robots or algorithms. Recently, I saw a modest one called Global Industrial Fasteners Industry, and it says that after dipping down to $70 billion in 2020, the global market for industrial fasteners is projected to reach a revised size of $92.7 billion by the year 2027, growing at 4.2% per year. Metallic fasteners will grow at 4% per year, accounting for 87% of the market, while plastic and other non-metal fasteners are expected to enjoy 5.5% growth each year through 2027. China is expected to have a growth of 5.8% and about 23% of the global market share, while the USA expects 4% annual growth and 18% of the world market. Other noteworthy geographic areas are Japan, Canada, and Germany, each forecast to grow at 2.7, 4.1%, and 2.7%, respectively. Companies mentioned in the report include Acumen Global Technologies, Bolton, Ernest Machine Products, Hamed Aerospace, Illinois Toolworks, Infasco, K-Max, Lisi, McLean Fogg, Atlas Bolt and Screw, Stanley Engineer Fastening, Sundrum Fasteners, TR Fastenings, and Bollhoff. When I compare these forecasts to the public financial results routinely summarized in the sales and net income tables in the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, I can conclude that market reports like this one are coming down on the conservative side. For example, on page 7 of the May 16th edition of the Fastener News Report newsletter, the average quarterly growth rate comparing 2022 and 2021 revenue data for the dozen companies listed on the table was over 18%, and the average net income increase was even more impressive at nearly 51%. This means to me that there are certainly out-of-the-ordinary activities going on in the fastener industry and the sectors that it serves. So my concluding advice is to take these reports with a grain of salt. Don't spend much, if any, money on them. Enjoy the waves we are riding. Be prepared for unexpected crashes and curveballs, and pay close attention to the quarterly results as well as to the monthly FDI reports offered in every episode of Fully Threaded Radio. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
This is Jake Davis, founder of the industry-renowned U-Bolt Blend Coffee and president of BTM Manufacturing. As a domestic manufacturer of threaded fasteners and bent wire products, our history as a family-owned business runs deep. My father, Joe Davis Jr., started in the fastener distribution industry over 50 years ago and has always instilled exceptional customer service into myself and our employees. Over the years, we've expanded our production facility to accommodate more projects, added machinery and tooling to increase our productivity, and increased our knowledge of products consistent with industry changes. However, one constant has always been our customer service focused mentality. In an imperfect world, we always strive to put our customers first. It's the way I was taught, and it's the way I've continued to operate our business. BTM Manufacturing, a commitment to service.
Stelfast customers say it all.
My name's Chris Jones. I'm the operations manager at Sunpack Incorporated in Florida. We certainly rely on Stelfast as one of our prime vendors. We view them more as a partner than just a vendor, and that relationship just seems to build and build year after year. We do a little bit more business and have a very open line of communication. They've been a great partner. They've been good to us, so yeah, we're very happy.
For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast.
ND Industries has been increasing the safety and reliability of fastener assemblies by developing innovative materials and processes since 1955. Names like ND Patch, Thermalock, Electrolock, and Vibratite serve a wide variety of fastening applications across North America and around the world. To see our full line of innovative products or to discuss your application requirements, contact ND Industries today at www.ndindustries.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Fastener Training Institute and AIM Testing Laboratory in beautiful El Cajon, California. Well, if you listened to last month's Fully Threaded Radio, and I hope you did, I'm sure you did. If you're listening to this, you would have listened to that one. You would have had the pleasure of listening to Tim Action Jackson talk about his time in the fastener industry and wax eloquently about wrecking his motorhome and the whole bunch of other things. But if you stuck on to the end, Tim started to get serious. And one of the things he was very serious about was the fact that we have lots of people leaving our industry. He's one of them. And we're not doing a good job of passing on what he called tribal knowledge or knowledge in general to the next generation. And I listened to that and I concur with that. And it's one of the reasons why I love what I do is I love training people and I love seeing the light bulbs come on when a concept becomes owned by a person that didn't own it before. And I recall my own time in the fastener business here over the years, learning technical things and finding stuff out. And at some point in time, I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but for some mysterious reason, I ended up being, I guess, identified as a fastener expert, whatever that means. And then just recently, we lost two of our amazing fastener experts, Ben Blendolf and Joe Greenslade, these past couple of years, and some other people as well. And it sort of reminded me that they had a big impact on my growing up in the industry, even though I kind of got a late start at this. And I thought, what am I doing to help pay it forward? And I decided I wanted to do something. And so this Fastener Training Minute is not going to be a technical talk. It's going to be kind of a career motivation talk. So I hope you'll stay tuned. And when I come back, I'll tell you about an idea that I have that I hope some of you will be interested in to help us to pass the information on to the next generation.
Thanks, Carmen. This is Joe Morris with the Fastener Training Institute. We have just returned from a great week in Cleveland where we presented Fastener Training Week. This was arguably one of our best classes as we had 34 students from all over the country joining us, plus an attendee who traveled all the way from Brazil who made the investment in his education to join us. So if you're not familiar with Fastener Training Week, I encourage you to talk to some of our previous students. We spent 4 days in the classroom, but not just in a lecture setting. Students work together in hands-on workshops learning about how to navigate through the IFI Book of Standards and how to use calipers and measure parts, plus hands-on demonstration with Skidmore Wilhelm equipment. We also spend 1 day on a chartered bus touring fastener manufacturing facilities and a testing lab. Special thanks to Todd McRoberts and his team at Audible who provided us with an outstanding tour of their facility. There is no better way to learn how bolts are made than to actually watching the process in person. I also want to say thank you to Tracy and her team at Tensile Testing Metallurgical Lab in Cleveland. They've hosted our class for several years and they never disappoint. They have a very impressive operation and showcase a testing lab very well. One aspect of Fastener Training Week that is worth mentioning is the camaraderie that students gain. They really get a taste of what it's like to work in the fastener industry and see how networking and relationship building is truly part of our industry. Thank you to Marty Nolan and the North Coast Fastener Association for inviting our entire class to their annual social. Education is obviously important, but if you ask many individuals in the fastener industry that have succeeded in their career, the causes have largely been contributed to the strong networking and channels that they've created over time. I'm pleased that we can expose our students to this during Fastener Week. So, if you missed this week, mark your calendar because the next Fastener Training week-long event is going to be in Chicago in August. We're going to join Nancy Rich and the Midwest Fastener Association for their tabletop showcase and mixer. Our week-long class will be led by Lawrence Klaus, John Metcalf, and Salim Brahimi. I anticipate a great turnout and encourage you to visit our website today to enroll. It doesn't matter if you're new to the industry or a seasoned veteran. I promise you will learn something during Fastener Training Week. Please visit our website at fastenertraining.com for more information or email me at jom@fastenertraining.com. Now back to Carmen.
Quality products, quality service, quality customers. That's 3Q Inc., a fastener distributor unlike any you've worked with before. With its unique remote managed inventory stocking programs, wide array of secondary service offerings, and wholly owned cold forming capability, 3Q Inc. has been supporting fastener distributors since 2008. 3Q offers a wide range of 100% American-made fasteners, including ITW Sems lock washers, as well as specialty and imported parts. Give 3Q a call today to discuss your needs and experience 3Q quality quality for yourself. 3Q Inc. www.3q-inc.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, and I want to talk to you all about your abilities to be a technical person in the fastener industry, or your interest in being a technically inclined or competent person in the industry. I've had the pleasure of training hundreds, maybe even thousands of people since I've been considered to be a consultant and a fastener expert. And so an idea that has come to me, it's not a new idea or even a fresh idea. It's actually a very old idea. And that idea is that we need to do a better job of mentoring. And I have mentored multiple people in the industry, and I know some of the other experts are mentoring people. And we have mentorship programs in the industry. NFDA, I think, has a mentorship program. Some of the other experts maybe have mentorship programs going on. Mike McGuire is involved in some mentoring stuff. But what I want to do is offer to anyone who is interested a technical mentorship program to help you do in a year, or at most a few years, what took me 20 years to do. And I know that sounds pretty outrageous, but I just want to tell you, between what we have with internet and IFI resources and other things today, this information can be downloaded much faster through those technical resources and also through hundreds of war stories that I have to share. So I'm going to just make the offer to anyone in the industry who would like to become more technically proficient in a serious way beyond things like being a certified fastener specialist, which is a great start to becoming a fastener expert. But if you want to really push the envelope, join me and I will invest in you an hour a month and probably 2 hours a quarter, and then maybe a full day at least twice a year, something like that, in some place where we are already going to be there anyway. It could be San Diego, where I'm at. It could be, where there's a trade show or an event. It's not a casual thing. There will be homework. There will be some kind of curriculum. The curriculum could be specific to your interest. For example, you might want to become an expert in some narrow area of the fastener industry versus being a broad specialist like I am, even though I can go fairly deep in a lot of areas as well. I don't know if it's going to be an FTI thing or a Carmen thing or an AIM test lab thing or maybe an IFI thing. I don't know. We'll work that out. I don't know if there's going to be a cost to it. Hopefully not. But I am very serious about wanting to do it. And if I can get 2 or 3 interested people to contact me, then I will press forward and we will do it. But I just want to warn you, my purpose of this is to grow you up as a fastener expert. And that is what I'm hoping to do so that we won't have a shortage of fastener experts in our industry. You can be more valuable to your company. You maybe have a better career path. You're someone who is inclined to become a quality assurance professional or even a consultant, or if you're an engineer and you want to become a fastener engineer or be able to add that to your list of things that you feel you are accomplished in. Now, there's a whole bunch of caveats and warnings that come along with the words like expert and engineer. So those of you who are owners listening to this saying, what the hell is he doing? He's going to get us sued. I know how to deal with all that and make it so that your people can become very technically proficient and share their knowledge with your customers in such a way that it does not impart liability on you, which is a big part of being an expert as well. So that's what my idea is. That's it for now. Also, we need more than me as a mentor. So if you feel like you're someone who could be part of this program as a mentor, please let me know. The more, the better. I don't know if I'll get 2 people that are interested. I already know I have 2, so I'll just tell you that. Or 5 or 500. But whatever it is, it's time that we, as Tim Jackson said, don't let this tribal knowledge slip out the bottom. We have to make sure that these things that we know get passed on. So that's what I want to do. Well, thank you for listening. This has been Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute.
At Worth, status quo isn't an option. Worth is a global supply chain solutions provider of fasteners, MRO, and safety products, along with value-added services like kitting and assembly, 3D printing, and engineering assistance. Find out what Worth can do for you at worthindustry.com.
This is Leo Core, editor of Distributors Link magazine, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Fully Threaded listeners might remember a couple episodes back, we mentioned that Preston Boyd is connected with the IFI these days, and he's doing a lot to, let's say, reacquaint the distribution world with manufacturing, domestic manufacturing, that is. He's here with us now to discuss that a little bit. Hey, Preston, it was great to see you at the NCFA Distributor Social last week here in Cleveland.
Hey, Eric. That was fun, wasn't it? That was a great evening. The people at North Coast should be really proud of both the turnout and just the involvement of so many different people in the industry in their event.
Yeah, they do a great job, and this time was no exception. The Cinco de Mayo theme, I think, made a lot of people happy. I know I took full advantage of the taco bar.
Lots of limes and beer bottles on the floor that night. So yeah, it was fun.
And if you only knew the backstory of the shoestring budget decorating committee, that's a good one. I'll have to tell you that one offline. Well, one of the other great things about it was that the IFI was there in full force. And of course, the Fastener Training Institute just so happened to be having a Fastener Training Week. So a lot of those students were there. It was really good to talk with you and Joe Morris and, of course, Carmen Vertullo, some of the other trainers, and, of course, Dan Walker, the executive director of the IFI. And at one point, we were all sort of gathered there in the hallway, and it was fantastic. You're one of those guys who has been in the industry for, let's say, several years, and we've run into each other here and there, but we haven't had a lot of chances to talk at length, and here we are. It's really going to be good to hear about what you're doing with the IFI.
Well, I certainly appreciate the invitation and the opportunity here, and it is truly a networking relationship industry that we both participate in, and it's just great that the circles keep getting wider and wider as we all recover from COVID and get out there and try and make new acquaintance.
When we talk about this kind of reintroduction, I think it probably makes a little sense for especially people who are newer to the industry to give a little background on, first of all, what the IFI actually is, what it does, and how it supports domestic manufacturing, and then kind of lead that into really why the relationship with distribution probably wasn't what it could have been for all these years, and how you're, I guess, turning that around.
Yeah, I think, your platform brings in a large audience, and some of them may be newer to the industry. So just, if I can briefly give you just a few tidbits about the history of the IFI and the Industrial Fastener Institute, commonly referred to by people in the industry as IFI, is a trade association, and we represent the manufacturers of mechanical fastening products and form fasteners that are produced in North America. I guess the genesis of our organization goes all the way back to 1931. As a matter of fact, last year we celebrated 90 years of continuous service to the fastener industry. But back in 1931, the original name of the organization was the American Institute of Bolt, Nut, and Rivet Manufacturers, which was very difficult to put on a T-shirt. So I guess the backbone of this association really has to do with the engineering and the technology and the standards, because that has been a purpose from the beginning of the the organizations coming out of the ground back those many years ago. So in 1941, the organization issued its first set of published standards called the Bolt, Nut, and Rivet Standards. And this was an assortment of standards that were generated by the leadership of that organization to bring some standardization to the parts that were being manufactured by all these member companies. The organization continued to grow steadily as it expanded out of the Cleveland area. The origin of the association actually was downtown Cleveland, Ohio, and back in 1949, a name change occurred, and this was actually due to some antitrust laws that had been put in place. So they formally became the Industrial Fastener Institute in 1949, and that's been the name that the association has operated under since that period in time. Originally, the manufacturing members were the only members of the IFI, and back in 1985, there were some bylaws changes, and we added a membership classification known as the association memberships. And what this allowed the IFI to do was to bring in support manufacturing companies such as raw material suppliers, machinery suppliers, ancillary equipment suppliers. Now these days we have members of the IFI that are involved in software, testing labs. You mentioned Carmen Vertullo. He's a member, ASD member of our organization. So today, our membership totals over 160 companies located throughout the United States, Canada, and recently in the past decade, we've added several manufacturing members in Mexico as well. So the membership of the IFI is made up of varied sizes of organizations. We have small to medium-sized family-owned enterprises. We have some large corporate members, names that would be familiar to people in the industry like ITW, McLean Fogg, Stanley Engineering, and down to some very small, 20 people organizations that specialize in very specific fasteners that are family-owned enterprises. So as you can imagine, that 160 members crosses across many geographic boundaries and many size revenue companies, and we all come together as a community trying to support the Industrial Fastener Institute and the goals of the Institute.
Now, back in the 40s, when you were starting with the standards work and then right before the name change, I guess, and all that, was it always a national organization or was it more regional at that time? The reason I ask is because I know that, say, the Rockford, Illinois area was a hotbed of manufacturing activity at the same time, and I'm wondering if there was at any point a competing organization and eventually the IFI won out.
Yeah, not to my knowledge. Again, the history of the association has some definite gaps in the data collection, but to my knowledge, this was the original association, and it grew out from that regional beginnings to include the Chicagoland area, and then obviously across the country as these different specific fastener type of associations were developed. A lot of aerospace manufacturers, for example, are located in California. A lot of the automotive members that we have obviously came from the Detroit markets.
Right. And if we consider that the current distribution model in North America has been around since, say, the 70s, would you say that it came into full form? I'm just wondering over time how it's fluctuated, say, the proportion of your members who sell through distribution. Do you have a feel for that?
Well, I think a lot of the manufacturers, for example, the particular company that I used to work for, Hill Fastener, their origins were in that Rock River Valley area. John Deere, for example, was started in Grand Detour, Illinois. I think a lot of those relationships were basically support industries, fastener manufacturers being support industries to a lot of the larger OEMs needing additional capacity and suppliers of a regional basis. So most fastener manufacturers that were in existence back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were selling directly to these major manufacturers. And I think, the distribution model came into vogue, vendor managed inventory, and allowing OEMs to focus more on manufacturing their wares as opposed to having large purchasing departments and warehousing operations and trying to keep track of the many thousands of SKUs of fasteners that would be required to build a combine or a ski-doo or whatever the particular product is.
Right. I'm just trying to understand when would have been the heyday of, say, the relationship between domestic manufacturers and distribution compared to where we are today, because now it's starting to turn around. Again, it's improving the relationship, I would say, which is what would lead us to your current work with the IFI. And the master importer model, say, came to be really in its heyday. Would you say the 90s would have been its strong point?
I think perhaps a little bit sooner than that. I mean, I think, definitely in the early 80s and throughout the 80s, the business model of having an outside distributor handling the management of the inventory came into vogue. Certainly, there were cost savings associated with the management of that inventory and the people that were involved in trying to procure and make sure you had the product on the shelf at the right time at the right point in the manufacturing process.
Okay, so at what point did the pendulum start to swing away then from domestic manufacturing to a point where it's starting to swing back the other way now? Just trying to understand this arc.
Yes. I think, it really was dependent on the type of industry that, I'm going to say it had to be somewhere in the timeline of the early 2000s when everybody began to really focus on and try and do the lower cost of country sourcing. I mean, 96 through 2006, I think, would be a 10-year period where you saw a lot of product moving offshore, particularly high volume parts.
Right. Because it was shortly after we started up with FCH. By then the consolidation of the master distributors had already started. I mean, a bunch of them had already gone away, and that just continued all the way up until the present, right? And now we're left with just a handful of the big master distributors. And that is a portion of who some IFI members are going to be serving, right? I'm just trying to get an understanding for the fully threaded audience, and I think we're making some good progress on that, even though I'm winding my way towards it. So sorry if I'm leading you a little astray here, Preston. My fault entirely.
That's something, I mean, certainly if we have the opportunity, I can go back and talk to Bob Hill, for example, at Hill Fastener and get more of the exact dates, because he lived that entire conversion process with John Deere and Bassard, which was Iowa Industrial at the time. And, he talked frequently about the consolidation of how, Worth and other organizations went out and bought a lot of mom and pop distributorships to build the network that they have today.
And it just keeps on going. I mean, we see examples of that all over the place. Well, that's a really interesting topic unto itself, but let's roll it into your work with the IFI now again. So what are you seeing today, and what are you doing currently that it should be of particular interest to distributors who are trying to figure out what their next move should be in suppliers?
Well, one of my roles with the IFI is the promotion of the association and its membership, and really trying to be more involved at the grassroots level. And what I mean by that is participation in the regional associations, participation in some of the emerging groups, and understanding how the IFI can support and benefit from participation in these various events. I think what we've come to the realization is that the fastener industry has evolved and has gone through, both because of COVID, but also because of the manpower issues that we're all facing, that we are truly in this together. The distributors are as invested in manufacturers being able to, solve their labor problems, and domestic manufacturers continuing to invest in their facilities and modernize and automate to be able to allow the distributor to continue to purchase on a domestic platform. We've all witnessed, the downside of importing from Asia. And my takeaway from the most recent show in Las Vegas was that there were a lot of people there that, got in a wake-up call and began to see the potential issues, with their supply chains if they were solely, sourcing from a particular area of the globe. So they're looking for alternatives, and obviously the best solution would be to bring those products back to North America and be able to have a supply chain that they can feel there's more control over and more reliable. I don't think any of us can discount the fact that Taiwan will be under threat by China for quite some time. And that obviously weighs heavily on everyone's mind of not having all their eggs in one basket and beginning to develop U.S. sources again. But at the same time, I think, we're all understanding the necessity of being able to staff equipment and have the quality personnel in place. And there's a multitude of positions, skilled trade positions within the fastener industry that are going to need to be filled pretty quickly here in the next 5 years.
Well, yeah, there's another one of these repeating themes, and I'm sure the IFI is doing everything it can to support its members in smoothing all that out. Do you see, is there any progress being made, or are we just all kind of wringing our hands at this point?
Well, I would tell you that in strategic initiatives of the IFI that development of skill training and helping our members, understand best practices, who's having success out there within our membership in attracting new employees, who's doing the best job of onboarding. You just can't take a header operator trainee and turn him loose on a piece of equipment. It's not like you can stick him on a line in an Amazon facility and he's trained within the first 48 hours of working. I mean, these are the types of positions that can take a long time to fill. So, yes, we're working training partnerships. We're trying to work with 2-year colleges and trade schools and create mentorship programs. And we've gone as far to investigate IFI apprenticeship programs. We got heavily involved with the Rock Valley College there in Rockford, out on the West Coast. We've got a Compton College that is doing some aerospace training and developing operators for that specific market. But it's an overwhelming task when you think about all the shops that are out there and the number of people that are working in this industry today that are over the age of 45. I mean, it's probably in excess of 75% of the workers in most factories are between the ages of 45 and 65. And those that are 65, they're moving on very, very quickly, obviously, and becoming part of that great resignation or the baby boomer impact that people talk about.
And we continuously hear about this idea of the concept of going to college and getting all this debt and everything being sort of an old way of thinking. And it's just a question of how long does it take to turn that ship? So I guess we'll all find out. But the IFI is there doing everything it can. Sounds like that. So let's return again to this idea of the matching up of distributors and manufacturers. So you're out there doing as much PR as you can. You're attending the association meetings. You're doing the trade shows, which it's good to see out there. what are you seeing in terms of practical development in this area? I mean, are there any success stories that you can share?
I would tell you that I think the lines are being blurred a little bit as far as there's, the lines of delineation. I mean, we recently had, our meeting in Fort Lauderdale. One of the awards was given for technology to Kevin Minke. He's the director of engineering at Fastenal, and he was given an award for his development work in the standards programs. I think in the past, having somebody from Fastenal, who's probably the largest importer in the United States, awarded, may not have happened. So, Bill Derry now is attending IFI meetings. He's part of Peak Engineering and owner of that. I mean, so we've got some people that are have already crossed the line, and everybody understands the necessity of, if we're going to succeed as a country and as an industry, we have to act as a community, if you will, and that means that some of the old thinking needs to be changed. I mean, how can we as a country develop the resources that we need to have the available product here and be self-sustaining? So again, we talk about COVID, and we talk about a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years. I mean, the chip shortage was something that impacted the automotive industry financially, and a lot of people's lives got turned around because of the furloughs that had to happen. A lot of our automotive members were sitting back, not understanding what the demand changes were going to be to their product. So again, I think there's lessons to be learned from what has occurred the last 2.5, 3 years, and people are looking for ways to collaborate. I tell you, one of the things that I think is another signal that I wanted to mention while I was on the podcast was that Kevin Godden with AFC and the current president of NFDA, he recorded about a 3-minute video and sent to the meeting and asked that we play it. And it was a very heartfelt appreciation on behalf of the NFDA and their members to the manufacturing community, to the IFI members and the support companies for the responsiveness of the last 2 years and the way that people have reacted and tried to accommodate this surge in demand. So I think it's Eric, it's coming to the realization, there's a bigger issue at stake here other than perhaps, constantly looking for cost savings and cost downs. And that's having, a reliable supply chain that's based on some people that you have relationships with, and you understand that manufacturers have to turn a profit to stay in business, and that we all need to work together to develop the adequate labor force and make fastener manufacturing, fastener distributing as attractive as any other type of industry that's out there right now.
Right. Well, the margins are there. It's attractive.
Sure.
So, and if the product has to be there to begin with. So, that was a really classy thing that Kevin did and the NFDA did. And I guess that's another signal of the success that you're having, really, because it does indicate some awareness of what your mission is, and it sounds like it's succeeding.
I would tell you, too, I mean, it goes so far as to, the IFI support and the collaboration that's going on between Joe Morris and John Walkman at FTI is, it made no sense to have these two separate and not competing, but somewhat exclusive entities that were doing training. Now we've got IFI and FTI collaborating. This most recent event, the week-long event, occurred at the IFI headquarters, and to watch the two organizations meld together and the strengths. This is truly is where one and one have made three. With Salim and Joe and Lawrence and John planning and challenging people to bring them ideas on what other training is necessary, I think is is going to create something that will just continue to have more and more success, and we'll get more people trained. I was impressed with some of the questions that were asked of Carmen. I mean, these were not beginning fastener people that were being trained this time. These were people that were going through ongoing education, and we're really beginning to develop more fastener experts in the industry, and as opposed to perhaps the tribal knowledge training that may have occurred at some of those organizations previously.
Right. Let me rewind that a little bit for listeners. During the NCFA Distributor Social we talked about at the top of this conversation, we mentioned that a bunch of things were going on, and Carmen Vertullo did a presentation right before the doors opened to that event, and he had a Q&A session at the end and encouraged everyone to write down a question on a card. And it was a really informative and, interesting session that he delivered about his mentorship program. And so the questions that you're talking about that were unfurled on him were from really this group of people who were very knowledgeable in the industry, and yet they were picking up all this knowledge from Salim, Lawrence, and so forth. I think the IFI is known for these giant names in the industry, like Rob Harris, like Joe Greenslade. A lot of people remember those guys. They would be proud of what happened there at that event and what you're doing now, Preston.
Yeah, I think, that's a very good point, Eric. I mean, there are people that have created the foundation for what we're trying to implement today. I mean, Joe Greenslade, obviously it was a pleasure knowing him, but to witness his passion for passing on knowledge and creating, vehicles to get this information into the hands of people in our industry. And I would tell you, the largest group of people who utilize, purchase, and have subscriptions for the IFI standards and information technology, they all come through the distributor community. So, we do in fact support and continue to add value to these relationships simply by, having Salim and Lawrence involved in continuing Joe's work with all the engineering administrative entities that exist out there. I mean, Salim sits on ASTM. He participates, he travels globally representing the IFI at all these various code bodies. So it continues to be, as I mentioned earlier, perhaps the backbone of the IFI is really our engineering focus and addressing the concerns, of our membership and representing our membership through the standards and the code bodies that are out there.
Well, it's hard to believe we've been talking for over half an hour already, and I'm not going to let this conversation end without giving you the chance to let everybody know what some of the resources available through the IFI are. What's the takeaway?
Well, I think, like everything else, in this world, technology is making dissemination of technical data easier. Joe Greenslade, in his infinite wisdom, many years back, began the development work of the IFI Technology Connection. And I think comprehensively, this is probably the most complete online source globally of technical data for inch and metric fasteners. There's a lot of years of product development and platform development that has occurred, but it is definitely unique in the world. The database, the lookup database that's associated with the technology connection, it comes at a very affordable price. And again, depending on the distributor and the number of seats that they may want to utilize, they've got different branch locations. We will work with them on multi-user subscriptions. So I think, there's Salim can set up a free demo for anyone that's interested in the technology connections. Obviously, we still publish the IFI Book of Standards. I think Carmen Vertullo in his last podcast talked a little bit about some of these tools, But it is the gold standard for anyone that's operating, on the engineering or technical side of the fastener industry. They're operating in the dark if they're not using the tools that are available to them. So back in 2021, we did release the 10th edition of the books. I think we'd all be amazed to know that throughout the COVID period, our sale of the books, the hardcover books, which if anybody's seen those, they're a pretty substantial document. Our sales grew somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% of a year-over-year analysis during the COVID period. So the books are still available, and those could be purchased on our website, or as we attend these trade associations, and we will be making some special offers on during the period of time of the show or the whatever the event is to promote the books, and also our online book of standards, which it's the same information. But it's basically real time. When you buy the book, it's out of date the day that you get it, because there's going to be constant changes that are ongoing and occur. So all the information that's available in the book has been compiled and put into our online book of fastener standards. And again, this can also be established for somebody that's got multi-users with some type of discount as you add users to the system. And then with the globalization and metrification of a lot of products that are out there, we also provide access to all the ISO standards. And this is something that was developed by Salim through his relationships and work that he's done with ISO. So I think from that standpoint, that is a major contribution that we make, not only for distributors, but also for OEMs and all sorts of different organizations that are actually looking for who is the fastener industry's recognized authority in terms of technical data. And I don't think there's any question at all. It's the association known as IFI.
It's the IFI. We've been talking with Preston Boyd of the Industrial Fasteners Institute. And I got to tell you, Preston, I'm 100% sure that's the first time I've ever heard the term metrification. That was great. I'm putting that one in the lexicon. Yeah, I'm definitely going to use that one again. I was also very impressed when, during Carmen's presentation, during that Q&A, a set of those books were included in the gift package. I'm sorry, the prize package. That was an amazing prize that someone walked off with, and everyone should have the IFI books in their reference library, that's for sure. Well, the last thing that I'm going to ask you, and you don't have to spend too much time on this one if you don't want to, Preston, but I have to ask, I've been a big advocate of this IFI versus NFDA golf tournament for the longest time. Nobody's taken me seriously, but is that an idea whose time is maybe finally coming?
Well, I happened to see today on LinkedIn that there's one of the tournaments that occur in Chicago for I forget which charity benefit it is, but it's the fastener industry getting together. That there's going to be a kind of a team competition between opposing associations. I guess I'm not sure of the makeup of it, but I think there almost needs to. Somebody needs to take and turn this into like a Ryder Cup event. And I'm a little fearful, though. I mean, I've played golf with Adam Derry, and if he's representative of the type of caliber of golfers that the makeup of the NFDA, and I've played with Doug Ruggles as well. So I know they get some pretty big sticks, but we may have some good guys hiding in the closet here on our side. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be fun. I think it would do nothing but enhance the relationships and some of the camaraderie that we're looking to reinstitute here between distributors and manufacturers, and as we go through this entire attempt of rebuilding America and rebuilding America with supply chains that are based on American workers. So yeah, I think we should get with Morgan and see what could be done about something for that golf event in Las Vegas. I think that's a perfect venue for that.
Oh, there you go. Right. A man of action. I like that. Okay. Well, I hope the right people are listening to this. And I could tell you right now, I would not mind one bit if the recipient of the next Fully Threaded Radio Award, that 30-pack of Busch Light plus an attractive FTR golf cap went to somebody on the IFI side. I think we do it, and if the game called for it, we'd be up for that challenge. And it sounds like the IFI is up for any challenge that you're going to encounter, and Preston Boyd, you're a good man to encounter it. So we sure do thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Eric, it was my pleasure. I enjoy riding down the road and listening to the podcast, and I think you guys are doing a great service for the industry with the information that you're getting out there, and I just appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the people that I represent, which are the manufacturing companies in North America manufacturing the best product globally available.
We'll talk to you at the next show, and we'll talk to you folks right after this, and it's Fully Threaded Radio.
In continued efforts to improve the industry standard, Goebel Fasteners has developed a patented new multi-grip lock bolt system made completely from T304 stainless steel. In applications where an extensive grip range is needed and a consistent flush pin break to the collar is favorable, the Goebel T304 stainless steel lock bolt system is the new and improved standard in the market. Essentially, the T304 stainless steel lock bolt system's extensive grip range and various sizes can replace up to 14 sizes of the classic 6-groove locking fastener system. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
So, you're in the fastener industry, and your distribution software isn't quite cutting it. You need software that can do accounting, manufacturing, CRM, forecasting, procurement, sales, kitting, rework, wireless warehouse management, barcoding, labeling, formatting, mobile apps, websites, and more. Wow, right? What you need is the #1 manufacturing and distribution software for the fastener industry, InSequel. InSequel provides a full suite of applications written and supported by InSequel, not to mention software support that is unmatched by anyone in the industry. InSequel works with you, not at you. Don't be just another sale. Be a partner with InSequel. Contact us today at insequel.com. That's INXSQL.com.
Cut the no quotes out of the equation. Eurolink is your go-to resource for uncommon and hard-to-find metric fasteners that others can't even quote. Contact the sales team at EurolinkFSS.com and get your hard-to-find metric fasteners delivered.
Stainless Stan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. Star quality is more than products, just the way Wayne wanted it to be. It's simple. We're Star.
This is Rosa, the preferred riveter at Brighton Bass International. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio with Eric and Brian.
Well, Bri, based on Preston's comments there towards the end of our conversation, sounds like we may be closer than ever to this NFDA versus IFI golf tournament.
I know. You've been quietly stirring the pot to get that about for years.
I just think it'd be such a cool thing, and just love handing out the FTR award at these golf outings. I guess you get to do stuff like that when you aren't really a participant and sort of just get to cheer it on.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Preston Boyd with the IFI for jumping on the podcast today and sharing some of his insights. He's a guy that I'd like to have back again soon because he's got so much to say, and I'm sure we'll do it. Also thank Chris Donnell with Scanwell Logistics. He's another guy that could go on for a long, long time. I think if you listen to that whole segment, everyone, you got the impression I had to sort of rein him in a little bit, but it's just that he's got nonstop, really, really critical information. So I hope you all got a lot out of that. Kelly Charles of Sems Specials and the NFDA joined Mike McNulty today Thank you very much for your analysis. And of course, Carmen Vertullo had the Fastener Training Minute. Always good to hear you, Carmen. Kelly mentioned the upcoming NFDA ESPS session meeting that's happening in Minneapolis, June 21st through the 23rd. I'll be up there moderating the panel discussion, which is going to close the event down. And I'm really looking forward to that. Want to emphasize that she stressed that non-NFDA member distributors are very welcome to attend this event. And you can plug right into these meetings and get a lot out of it, get a lot of networking done. And who knows, maybe you'll find that the NFDA is a good organization for you.
Who knows, you probably will find that.
It's been known to happen.
Yep.
Finally, I'd like to thank the sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio. They help us make this show possible, and they support the FCH Sourcing Network and all of our various activities.
Yes, they do.
So we very much appreciate it. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, tested, tried, true, Brighton Best. Goebel Fasteners, quality the first time, Goebel. And Star Stainless Screw, right off the shelf, it's Star. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio, Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, Indie Industries, Parker Fasteners, Solution Industries, Stelfast, 3Q Inc., Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry North America. Please, folks, reach out to us at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com with any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you'd like to jump on the podcast for a segment at some point. And we'll wrap up, Bri, by taking a quick look at a story that appeared in the May 10th Wall Street Journal. Charlie Kerr over at Kerr Lakeside sent this over the other day, and it plugs right into comments that I think this is the first time it's ever happened where all three of our main segments made reference to the same idea, and that is this fear of what might happen with China and Taiwan.
Yeah, though it may be that China will be thinking a little more carefully about it since it's seen some of the missteps the Russians have made.
Yeah, good point. Well, it's going to cause a lot of people a lot of problems, and I mean, I think it's just really beyond me to try to war game it, but let's just say that it's been on a lot of people's minds, and until recently, people were, I think, kind of hesitant to utter it aloud. However, Chris Donnell, Kelly Charles, and finally Preston Boyd, they all made reference to this idea that it's playing on everyone's minds what would happen to the supply chain in the event that there's some conflict there. So along comes this story from Charlie. The headline is Businesses See New Peril in Taiwan. This is by Richard Vanderford. Did you take a look at this, Bri?
Yeah, I did. Yep, I read it, and it points out naturally that the cost of insurance has gone up as people think it's more and more relevant.
Right. The story starts off, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has made companies more aware of the potential for upheaval overseas, driving interest in political risk insurance for two other potential hotspots, China and Taiwan. Skipping down a little bit to a quote, it says, what recently has happened in Eastern Europe, Russia and Ukraine has just raised great awareness about political risks in general, said Daniel Reardon, the global head of political risk and credit at an insurer, Vantage Group Holdings Ltd. So that's the backdrop to this story. But just like you said, Bri, there's been a noticeable spike in this kind of insurance, both in the requests for it and the pricing of it.
Yeah, and the implications would be just staggeringly enormous because remember, Taiwan Semiconductor produces the large part of all the semiconductors in the world.
Oh, it would be huge. And just to give you an idea, folks, about, I don't even know how the actuaries go about calculating any of this. I mean, it's just too hard to war game all of it. This story goes on. This is taken from another quote by this Mr. Riordan. The volume of new insurance proposals submitted to underwriters jumped about 25% from the last quarter of 2021 to the first quarter of 2022, driven in part by China-related concerns. The increase bucked a normal trend of business slowdown over that time frame, he said. So usually it's kind of wrapping up a little bit, and this year was heating up.
Right.
So we don't need to really draw any more conclusions, I don't think, Bri. I think all of our guests mentioning it and this story coming in and Charlie taking notice of it and sending it along, that speaks for itself. People are on edge. People are wondering what's going to happen. And what are we doing? We're packing up our bags and going to Detroit.
Well, your buddy from the Reshoring Institute would have a great solution to it. Buy something made in America.
As Preston also stressed during his comments. Yes. Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to let it sit there, and we're going to start packing for the next voyage. Y'all ready for that, Bri?
I am. But it's not quite as profound as the one I just took, because I've already been in my own time warp. The flight leaves Sydney at 10:30 on Thursday morning and arrives in Los Angeles at 7:30 on Thursday morning.
Yeah, this won't be quite as brutal.
Yeah, so what's on the next episode?
This is the next episode, Bri. Did you forget?
So we're in a time warp of endless next episodes.
Yeah, another time warp. Well, the next time you hear from us, folks, hopefully we'll have a whole slew of sound from the floor of the Detroit show at Fastener Fair USA. Hope to see you there, talk to you there, and if not, we'll talk to you on the podcast. And we appreciate you listening to this one.
Yeah.
The next episode of Fully Threaded Radio.
After the next episode.
Now I think even I'm getting confused. So I'll just say, for Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws, and we'll talk to you next time.
And maybe we'll see you in Detroit.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.